Welcome back to the channel. It is Saturday morning. The markets are closed, but I just wanted to recap a trade that I took this week in Resolve AI, ticker symbol RZLV. And I want to show you how I set up my scanners to be able to find this particular stock to trade and exactly how I traded the stock. And this is something that when the dust settled yesterday, you could see that I had made about $43,000 on that trade over a 3-day period. And so this was a pretty nice trade for me, and I just want to take you through it. So let me first take you to my trading view, and you can see here just how I set up this scanner. So you can set up the scanners to really scan for anything you want. And what I decided to do here was just look at 4 things. So this first one here is the technical rating. And I wanted to scan for all the stocks that had a very high technical rating, so essentially strong buy. And then this is the moving average rating right here. The moving average rating is also something that I set up kind of in a descending, strong buy to buy and to sell and all that stuff. So I set it up to where I see all the strong buys at the top. And I do that with each of these. And then I look over here to the average volume, and that's going to be important because I want to find things that are really trading really over like, a million or so in actual volume a day. And then I look at the relative strength index and I set this up and I sort it in descending order. And I really want to see things that are, you know, very high relative strength index from, say, 99. And then for me, I just kind of cut it off around 85 or so. So when I set this up, I've got some stocks here that come up, and these just refresh on my screen every minute. And so you can see some pretty good players here that have a very high relative strength index. You see Vimeo here. Vimeo was a neat one. It has a buy rating, strong buy rating, average volume of 3.3 mil, and an RSI of 94. You see some other ones here that kind of had a little bit of play. Um, uh, Realpha Tech, also very high relative strength index, trading at 32, almost 32 million shares. And here's Bitfarms, Western Digital. All of these are trading very high volumes and have a very high relative strength index. And so every day when I run this, there's about at least 15, maybe to 20 names that have high relative strength index and very high moving average rating and technical ratings. And those are the ones that I look at for the setups. So on this particular day, I believe it was the 9th of September, RZLV popped up, and it was right here when, and I'll just zoom out. So I'm looking at the 15-minute chart, and it was just kind of trading like this, nothing exciting. And then on the morning of the 9th on market open, the stock really gapped up, and it gapped up from about $4.63 to about $4 and about $5 actually. And so I saw this and I was like, should I take this trade? And I really wasn't sure if I should or not. So I decided to go ahead and get into the trade, and I went ahead and bought in shortly after market open, and it had already made this move. So this yellow line here is about where I got in, and it's around $5.16 roughly. And I decided to express my bullish view on this by purchasing the options. And so I purchased some call options. And I'll talk a little bit more about how I decide what kind of options contracts to purchase, what delta I like to use, and all that. I can talk about that probably a little bit later on, maybe in another video. But I bought in here. We had a pop up, and we came back down later on in the morning, and then we just started this slow grind higher, just kind of respecting this 21-day moving average, or 21 period moving average right here. And so we just kind of kept going north, and at some point as the day went on and into the next day, this was actually the 10th here, so was already in profit on day one. And that's what you want. You want for the trade to start paying you immediately. And so I ended the day positive. I held a position overnight. We continued in through the 10th of September, and then we had another very nice gap up here on the 11th, and we had this kind of a topping wick here. We went up really high and then we came down. We got some more bullish volume, and then we started just trading down throughout the day. I really didn't like this here. I mean, I was already in substantial profit. And as far as my trading psychology goes, I like to see if I can let the winners run, but I have to admit that's a struggle for me. If I'm in profit, I kind of like to accept some payment, take some risk off the table, and solidify part of the gain. So I took a third of the profit right here, roughly a third. And this ensured that the amount that I put into the trade, I had recouped that back and notched a win on the board for this trade. And so we just kind of chopped around in here for a bit. I held the position overnight again till the 12th, and then we had some action here where bulls and bears were kind of just vying for control. It looked like the bulls were doing pretty good, but then we just started seeing things decay, and the stock kind of started coming below the 21 period moving average. Going into the weekend, I had already made a lot of profit, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and exit the entire position right as we were starting the weekend. So in the last 10 to 15 minutes of trading, I went ahead and exited the trade. And so this was a trade here, as you can see, 3-day trade starting on the morning of the 9th and then exiting on Friday. And this trade here was something where I was able to essentially make a profit of 43K on the trade. And this was an overall gain on the trade of 77.21%. So that was a pretty nice trade for me. Really glad to make that trade. And as you can see, I found it just using a very simple scanning technique here on TradingView, where I just look at really four things. The technical rating, I want that to be a strong buy technical rating. The moving average rating, I want that to be a strong buy on that. And then as far as the RSI, I want that to be very high. And this is on a 4-hour time frame, guys. So this 4 hour here, all these are inputted looking at 4-hour time frames. And then as far as the average volume, once I find something that ticks the box, I look at the average volume kind of last. So I don't want to trade anything that's thinly traded. I really want to see at least 1 million of volume. So let's just look back at Western Digital here. So this is Western Digital, has a strong buy technical rating, strong buy moving average rating, 7.1 million shares traded, and an RSI of 88. So I have not taken a position on that, but we'll just kind of look at this just to give you just an example here. We'll just type that in. And so first thing I like to do is go to the 4-hour chart. Okay, so the scanner's already kind of shown this to me as something that could be possibly a good trade. And then what I like to do is I like to turn on these linear regression channels. So this first one right here, this linear regression channel, is a 1.5 standard deviation on a 100 period look back. And then I'll turn on this one here, which is a 2 standard deviation linear regression channel, also with a 100 period look back. And I like to see this just simply sloping up and to the right. And as you can see, it's trading within the channels here quite nicely. And then I drop down to the 15-minute, and I want to make sure that the 15-minute moving averages are also still trending up and to the right. And it is. See that? So this right here is something that I would say, okay, this has good momentum, and this is something to look at, put it on a very short list to maybe take a momentum trade in this. And then as far as the volume, there's quite a bit of liquidity there because as you can see, it is trading about 7.1 million shares. So that's just an example. I don't have a position in that trade, but I just thought that I'd show it to you as just an example of how I go about just looking for good stocks to trade. So happy to share that with you today. Again, the trade that I was featuring on this video is RZLV 43K win, and I hoped you enjoyed that video and got something out of it. If you like the content, please like and subscribe and stay tuned for more content. Probably later on this week, if I get some time, I will go ahead and just post a weekly recap of how I did this week. This week was actually a pretty good week. Um, and I can just give you an example. I like kind of looking at this calendar view here on Kinfo, and I was able to make about $240,000 in trading this week. So that's a pretty good week. Building on the week before where I made 72,000, of course, hindered by some red days here where I had to just offload some dead weight. But this month is shaping up pretty nice so far. I'm having fun trading. I hope you guys are doing the same. So until next time, happy trading. Take care. We'll talk soon.